Since 1961, thousands of faculty have shared their knowledge and expertise with our amazing students. And while not one of these individuals have walked the same path, we all have found one thing in common: purpose. We find meaning in our instruction that transcends beyond the classroom. For most of us, this is not a profession, it's a calling. This podcast captures the stories of some incredible faculty who continue to show up in today's evolving educational landscape. Welcome to Purpose, a Faculty Excellence Institute podcast.
Welcome to Purpose, a Faculty Excellence Institute podcast. I'm Joy Pacini, and I'm here with Lesley Butcher. She is a speech professor at South Campus. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I'm going to start out by just asking you a little bit about your background, if you could share with us.
Sure. I joke with my students, but I say a lot. I was born in the middle of the cornfield, not pretty literally, but I grew up in the middle of Southern Illinois. So just very much, if you picture Iowa, Indiana, that corn belt. And I was raised in a town of 700 people. Wow. And we didn't know many people. We didn't have a lot. I had 4 brothers. And I know we've kind of have similar stories in that I kind of just wanted to get out of that space and see the world. So I grew up, again, little town, great family. I loved growing up in a little town to some extent because, ironically, there were opportunities to succeed. While the opportunities were limited, it was easier to do a lot. So I played a lot of sports. I loved doing speech competitions, and I loved Future Business Leaders of America, and I loved yearbook. And I think in a small school, if you were an achiever, sort of, you had to kind of do everything. So there isn't one part of high school that I probably didn't run or or participate in. And sometimes it was just because somebody had to do it. And so that's kind of how I grew up. And I knew really early on I wanted to use communication. I tell my students this really simple story, but when I was in 2nd grade, I got this teacher that I really wanted, and her name was Mrs. Sanders, and I wanted her to like me, and so I just tried to be the very best student I could be to get her approval or her favor. And one day by the yellow school bus, she was doing bus duty, and I came up and said, "Am I one of your favorite students?" And she said, "No, because you talk too much." And it's silly, but at 7 years old, I had this tension with communication. So this idea that talking makes people not like you, and yet I really wanted to talk and connect with people. And so that planted this bizarre seed of a journey of how could I get my head around and understand and know and communicate in a way that connected with people. And so that's pretty much what I've been doing the last 38 years.
Isn't it so interesting how your passion for communication grew out of that? I do find it interesting because of the negative experience of that, and then trying to find your voice again after that.
Yeah, I think this idea that sort of pain creates purpose, and that was honestly just a bizarre, significant moment. And then later in undergrad, so I started out as a broadcast journalism major. Ooh. I went to this little school outside Lexington, Kentucky. It's called Asbury University, and they had a really small environment, but they had a communication program where they were using their students as interns for the Olympics. They were running a college basketball show for University of Kentucky on ESPN2, and the head of the department had been the head of ABC Sports. So It was really attractive. And then when we got to talking to the people, they had a small D3 softball team, and I had been a pitcher for a really long time. I loved it. And the coach said, "We have a place for you here." So I thought, I'll get to play softball. I'll get to work on my sports broadcasting career. And so I was really excited. I didn't know a single person on campus. I moved 5 hours from home. Oh. Just a huge leap. But again, in a small town, I thought, I just want to get out. And I really thought this is the path that I would take, and that's where communication would take me. And then a lot of things happened my freshman year of college, but Physically I was tired. My arm was giving out, which is silly, but it just made everything hard. And I realized there's a specific sort of, this is in the 90s, but that felt like a specific physical type you had to be on television for ESPN. And I didn't feel like I could be that. And then I had a pretty tragic incident. This has been documented I did a Moth story on it, and NPR produced it. But the end of my freshman year of college, on my 19th birthday, I lost one of my really close friends in a car accident. He was part of the film program too. And I didn't probably understand grief or mental health or anything that goes with that. I just knew that my physical body had been tired from playing softball. I was also just like you in grad school. I mean, I was hustling. So my day in my freshman year of college looked like waking up at 6 a.m., washing dishes in the cafeteria for work study, then going to class, then swiping lunch cards for work study, then going to class, then going to practice, then meeting with a trainer, then reffing a volleyball game for work study, and then trying to maintain an academic GPA because I was on academic scholarship. And I had just run so hard. My summers, I worked 70 hours in a chocolate factory just to earn money, because in a small town there weren't a lot of ways to do that. And I hit a wall when my friend Brandon was in the car accident. It was towards the end of my freshman year, and it just felt like an ocean wave, and I didn't know how to breathe. And so I finished and then transferred out and then picked a very practical communication degree. I studied organizational communication, and I loved it. I loved every minute of all of my classes, still working 2 or 3 part-time jobs all the time. But I lived on campus, and I made the best friends. And I had a professor pull me aside my senior year. She was getting a doctorate in education, and she was overwhelmed with just her teenagers and life. And she said, I kind of need someone to be a research assistant. I didn't know what that was. And she said, you always put too many sources on your term papers, which is crazy. But I loved knowing things. I don't know any other way around it than it almost was insatiable. And so she said, can I hire you to be a research assistant? So we negotiated an hourly rate, and I did all of her research for her dissertation.
Wow.
And about a month in, I got a call in my dorm room from a vice chancellor, provost at the time, and she said, Wendy Shirk says that you helped her with her dissertation. I've just started this process. Could you meet with me? And I'm 21. And so I went to this official office building at the university, and I called it a consult. And so suddenly I had this sort of business side hustle. So I did 3 dissertations before I finished undergrad, and I would have an alphabetized binder, and I would say, okay, what are you thinking? They would call me from a conference and say, they mentioned this theorist or this researcher. Will you find everything they've ever written? And so I would have it printed and 3-hole punch for them. And it was the most fun. And they said, you'd be really good at grad school if you decide to go. So I kind of tucked that away because I just wasn't sure. Communication's so fluid. If you have a kid who says, I'm majoring in communication, your first thought is, what are you going to do with that? And you have to have a personality that can tell people what you can do with it. They don't know. So I really thought, I have to dream up how I can use this communication degree and convince people that I can do it. And so I didn't really have a real job. I was waiting tables, editing a law journal, doing these research assistant side hustles. And then my senior year, a national speaker approached me. I knew her son, and she said, I really am getting older, and I've been approached by publishers. I think I want to write a book, and I don't have time, and other people have ghostwriters. And so would you be willing to move to California after graduation and be my ghostwriter? So,
oh my goodness, you did ghostwriting?
I did ghostwriting, and I joke with students, it's not about ghosts, but, and to be honest, she said ghostwriter, and I went to my dorm and Googled it. I didn't really know what that meant. I'd never even entertain the concept that these leadership development books, business books I was reading, that someone else was writing them. Like it kind
yes.
of, it felt like an ethical bubble had been popped, if that makes sense. But I had a marketing internship, and this sweet German lady said to me, I have someone you can talk to. And so she made a phone call for me and told me to be in front of my dorm at 7 p.m. that night. And this is a true story. A giant white Cadillac pulled up in front of my dorm, and this very large white-haired woman said, "Are you Lesley?" And I said, "Yeah." I got in, and we went to a little Mexican restaurant in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And she slid her business card across the table and said, "I've written over 300 books for a lot of people you would know." And she said, "What do you want to know?" And it was just the most bizarre experience of my life. I thought I was in the Twilight Zone. I was so grateful. I felt like God had opened heaven and said, I'll make sure I'll lay out some kind of path. And so I just was pretty good at saying yes to whatever and then figuring it out. And so she said to me something really interesting that I still think about, but that what speaks well doesn't read well.
Oh,
And
okay.
speakers don't understand. And I learned that there's a different muscle that you use for writing speeches and writing books. And I said, just so we're all clear, I've done speech competitions since 4th grade. I have a communication degree, not an English degree. But I had written in a journal at 18 that I wanted to have a book one day. And so I thought, okay, this will get that off my bucket list. And I had nothing to go home to, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, just why not? So I moved to California with a suitcase and a box. No car, nothing. I slept the first couple months in an attic of a single mom in California. And I wrote and wrote and wrote. I read Stephen King's book on writing. I read E.B. White's Elements of Style, or Strunk and White. And I read a lot of Hemingway, which was crazy.
Yes,
and then
Hemingway.
I wrote a nonfiction book. But something about Hemingway unlocked, and I spent a lot of time in coffee shops, and I did a lot of marketing for this person's nonprofit and traveled and ran merch tables and worked 80 hours a week. And at the end of a year and a half, we published 2 books that nobody will ever know I was a part of, probably, and one for her, one for her son. I still have a manuscript that I love that's leadership material that someday I would love to put out, but it was the craziest experience of my life. But I was burnt out, and I thought, I can't live on $20,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started dating a guy who was finishing an engineering degree, and he said they have a good master's in communication program here at this university. And I applied. I got a fellowship. And so I ended up there and then just really loved it. And I ended up getting to be a TA one semester, and it was the most fun
Isn't it?
thing
It's so
I had
much
done.
fun.
I mean, I felt like it was not a therapy group, but I was teaching interpersonal communication to 18-year-olds who were living on campus outside St. Louis, Missouri. And I just looked forward to every 50-minute session I had with them. They would go to a big lecture once a week with a tenured professor, and then we would have 2 sort of breakout sessions with them in sections. And just figuring out how to connect to them so that they would connect to the material became this really fun challenge. And it was awesome. And I thought, okay, if I could do this forever, it probably wouldn't feel like a job. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of my introduction into a little bit of that. And then, gosh, the rest of the story is we moved to Houston because my husband got a job. I got pregnant. It took me 2.5 years to finish my thesis. So I didn't really get my degree until 5 years after I started, I think. 4 or 5 years. And the minute that I got that stamp, I started emailing local junior colleges and said, could I get a class? And Randy Snyder, who's no longer here at San Jacinto, was so gracious. And I was teaching a class here and a class at Houston Community. And I really loved it. And so I was having kids and raising them and adjuncting, and it felt like the best of both worlds.
Mm-hmm. It's like if you can enjoy adjuncting because it's so difficult in a way, and the pay isn't as much. So if you can enjoy that, you know you've really found your purpose.
Yes.
Just like we're saying with this podcast, yes.
Yeah, it was so great. And what's crazy, at the end of the semester, the the department chair at San Jac said, would you like to teach in the spring? And the Houston Community College person said here. And I always joke that the tipping point was the copy center. So I was about equidistant from both campuses, and both of the department chairs were supportive, but I had to do my own copies at Houston Community College. And Becky Martinez, who's a gem at North Campus, just with a friendly smile would let me email her whatever, and she'd have them ready for me. And I said, it made that experience so great. So I said, oh no, I'm only teaching here because they make my copies for me.
I remember that as an adjunct too, the grind of getting the copies made and where you're going to get them made because you don't have the same access to the copier.
Yes. And I'm sure I spent some money at Copy Doctor over those years I panicked for sure. And
Kinko's, yeah.
Yes.
Kinko's panic for me.
How long has Kinko's been gone?
I think it's been gone a while.
They're in the business graveyard with Blockbuster and
right.
Oh.
But yes.
Yeah. So that was sort of my journey. But that was 17 years ago. The North Campus had a little daycare center, and I had a 2-year-old. He just turned 2, and they let me negotiate kind of a partial rate. And so I would drop him off for a couple hours, go teach a class, pick him up, and then I'd hand him off to his dad in a Home Depot parking lot at 5 o'clock, and then go teach a 6 p.m. class.
Oh my goodness!
About 50 miles away. So I would drive maybe 100 miles. Adjuncting is a grind. Just so if you've taught, you just know, you take what you get, you make it work, and it's just part of it. But yeah, every Tuesday I would drive about 100 miles to get where I needed to go. So from North Campus to almost Sugar Land, that Missouri City area. But I just loved it. I was grateful to be able to teach. My mentor professor in undergrads said to me, if you end up getting a graduate degree, you want to teach, find a respectable junior college. Just plant yourself there. And she said to me, they'll let you teach, and you can really just hone that, and you can have a better work-life balance than if you would go to a university. And she was right. Mm-hmm. She was 100% right. And when we know, just because of all the awards with the Aspen Institute, there are very few junior colleges that are as respected.
Absolutely.
As San Jac. Hands down. I met an LA Dodger scout in Dallas during a conference. He was at breakfast, and he said, where do you teach? And I said, San Jac. And he said, oh, everybody knows about San Jac. Which we have an incredible baseball program. And so he said, they're on our radar all the time. Oh. And that's kind of in an athletic vein, but I think it is really true. There's very few people that, if you're in any sort of world that touches junior colleges, you know about San Jac. So I feel really fortunate. I don't think I knew that. I don't think I fully knew that when I started. I just thought they are giving me a shot. And so I adjunct for 10 years, and then a spot opened up at South Campus, which is closer to where I live, and we have our kids. And I was so excited and ready, because by that point I'd had 10 years of teaching different classes and really in it. And I thought, okay, this feels like a natural transition. And that's been 6.5 years since I came. So, and I still really love it. It's been a lot of fun.
Yes, it is. It's so much fun here, and I'm really proud to be here. I'm sure you are too. Just because, like you said, about the reputation of the college, it's something to be proud of working here.
And they've I tell a lot of new faculty, you know what you love. And so I, about 7 or 8 years ago, sort of dove into storytelling under a communication umbrella and did a Moth event and kind of got a window into that world of the Storytellers Guild at Houston. And KPRT has a great story hour, and the Moth story hour is awesome. And so I actually, on a dare, to be honest, I didn't know about the Moth. All the smartest people in my life who are readers, most English professors, all know about the Moth podcast. I feel like the last person to that party. But my good friend Carrie really encourages me to do things that stretch me, and also to complete my bucket list, and doing a TED Talk is on it. Oh. And she said, you have to start with the Moth story. And I didn't know what that was. So we bought tickets. We went downtown. I put my name in the hat. And the guy promised me that I probably wouldn't get my name called, because he said, it's the biggest night we've ever had. there's so many people here and there's so many people who put their names in the hat. So I relaxed a little, enjoyed the first half of the show. And if you don't know, the Warehouse Live downtown will host a Moth Story event. And it's an open mic story event, but you do put your name in a hat and there is a theme. And they have people who time you, also something I didn't know. And they have people that score you. So at the end, they hold up old school Olympic scorecards that say 9.1, 8.3. So someone just talks about their dogs dying, their mom dying the same week, and just the most tragic week of their life. And then someone goes 9.1. Like it's just very vulnerable and then very bizarre. So about halfway through the show, I started to feel like, okay, I don't need to worry. But I had a story ready. My friend had passed away on my birthday, and I knew kind of what that story had looked like. I'd written it for a couple classes. And sure enough, I was the 7th person called. I walked on stage. I had my left leg violently shook, and I've never experienced anything like that. Later, I learned you can get a beta blocker for that. But I
need one, too, because I had my leg shake one time on a stage.
I mean, shake. And so I go on stage, I tell the story, and everybody cheers. My friend, I sit down, I'm still like visibly shaking, and she said it's so great. And then I end up winning, and
you won.
I won I know. I got to do a grand slam, which is so fun. And then anything in America, if you win anything in America, it's like a microcosm of a reality show.
Yes,
and people line up to meet you. So after that event, I went on a radio show a couple of times. I spoke at the University of Houston's Public Relations Student Society. I spoke at a suits organization at A&M. I ended up getting to do a training for United Airlines in Chicago at their annual executive training on connecting. And then a professor at UHD, University of Houston downtown, talked to me about doing storytelling, teaching an elective storytelling. And I got just a lot of imposter syndrome. Like, I don't know. So then I just started reading about it and studying TED Talks, came across Karen Eber's TED Talk, and now she has a book, and she's great. We met on social media, which is crazy, and have done some Zoom calls, and she lives in the world of trying to help corporate people incorporate storytelling into their keynotes, into their meetings. It's just so great. And it honestly is part of why we're doing this, is because I want to hear people's stories, and I have my public speaking students do a narrative speech and learn to tell a story. My business students, we work on stories for their interviews. It has this phenomenal effect where you release oxytocin in your brain, and if it's told well, also cortisol and dopamine. But it's just the neuroscience behind storytelling fascinated me, and it is kind of the area that I would like to pursue more as I jump into research, because I just think we all need to be telling good stories. Oh, yes. And it connects us, and it's such a healthy thing for our society and our cultures, our families, in every space. So that's become sort of my passion beyond communication, is this sort of storytelling piece.
And I need to kind of build on that in mine as well. In my English classes, build on the storytelling aspect. So we're going to go to the rapid fire fun favorites question round. What's your go-to wake-up drink?
Coffee. Any coffee. Just cream, no sugar.
And who is the most impactful person in your life? You talked about a lot of people, but
so many.
Who would you rank first?
I mean, I have like a cheesy answer is always, I always say Jesus, because he was my best friend when I was 4. But honestly, I have a grandmother who went to college in 1940, and people called an old maid. She was valedictorian. She went to Eastern Illinois University. Her name was Lucy, and my youngest daughter is Lucy, named after her. And she just sort of in a small town broke some stereotypes and barriers, and gave me permission when I wasn't married at 22 to not feel bad about that and to take some risks. And she, even though lived and worked in a small town and had a family and raised kids, she just loved learning and valued education and didn't really care what people thought. And I'll always love her for that. She was pretty special in my life.
And wow, I would love to meet her. What's the coolest place you've ever visited?
I have been to Europe one time, and we went to this place called Fjord and Fjeri, and it is an island off the coast of Norway. And we were treated by our friends Ken and Carolyn. I'm just going to say their names because they're a gift. And they took us to this place that a man, for his mental health, started cultivating this little island. He put plants on it. He ran a horticulture shop in Norway, and it was his escape. And then it grew and grew and grew. And then he took his staff there as a Christmas gift. And today in the summer, tens of thousands of tourists will go, and they have a 5-star chef, and you walk around. It's the closest I feel like that I'll ever be to Hawaii. It's just unbelievably beautiful in a place that people said things couldn't grow. He created this really cool island. So you take a ferry to get to it, and it was just magical. So it's off the coast of Stavanger, Norway.
Oh, I want to go now.
Yeah,
for sure.
Everyone should go.
And let's see, favorite book you've ever read?
I think Educated by Tara Westover.
Oh, see, I haven't read that, and I need to.
So well written, but
Yes.
so many themes resonate. She writes it in a way that, from such a unique experience, you can connect with so many emotions. It's so good. It's so good.
All right. So I think this is a good point to
Yes,
wrap up. And it has been such a pleasure talking to you. You are so adventurous and really courageous. All these things that required courage that stand out in your story. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Purpose, a Faculty Excellence Institute podcast. Stay classy.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of Purpose, a Faculty Excellence Institute podcast. Join us next time as we hear from one of our inspiring faculty. Keep doing great work and stay classy.